dear colleagues, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen. Pani posol, dla nas velika čest I zadovolenia vitati vas v Bernskomu univerziteti.
Дякую дуже.
So that was my Okay, I did my best, thank you. It's my pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of the University of Bern to this event, to welcome in office Her Excellency, the Ambassador of Ukraine to Switzerland and Liechtenstein, Iryna Venediktova. This event, which has been organized by the Bernese section of the European Movement Switzerland, together with the Swiss Society for Foreign Policy, also marks a close collaboration between the university and the capital of Switzerland, represented tonight by our Mayor, Alec van Grafenried. A month ago, there were many events to commemorate the anniversary of the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine. 2 Ukraines in the country as well as abroad, this must have felt rather strange, as they were very much aware that Russia's aggression did not start on the 24th of February 2022, but 8 years earlier, with the unlawful annexation of the Crimea beginning on the 27th of February 2014, and the undeclared war in the Donbas region raging since spring 2014. As has been widely commented on, it is a great paradox of the relations between Western Europe and its eastern neighbors that it needed the frontal attack on the entire Ukrainian territory and the unexpectedly successful resistance of Ukraine to wake us up and make us realize that this war also concerns us, that this flagrant breach of international law is not happening somewhere far away, but in our neighborhood, on European territory. One reason for this blindness has been the fact that from a Western perspective, Ukraine, the biggest country on the European continent with 40 million inhabitants, has somehow remained hidden in the shadow of Russia. I must confess myself guilty in this regard. One of my favorite authors is Isaac Babel, born in Odessa, famous for his Odessa stories, and executed in the basement of a Moscow prison in 1940. Despite Babel's strong and obvious link to the Jewish community of southern Ukraine, I have never paused to ask myself whether he shouldn't be considered a Ukrainian rather than a Russian author. Worse, experts who should have known better also failed to make this reflection. In the otherwise excellent afterword to the complete collection of Babel's narrative works in German, published by the prestigious Hansa Publishing House, the word Ukraine is not mentioned once, not once, on more than 40 pages about Babel's life and work. The Jews of Odessa are consistently referred to as Russian Jews. This blind spot is an echo of the selective commemoration of the Second World War and the Holocaust, which turned the Jews of Kiev, murdered by Wehrmacht soldiers at Babin Yar, into Soviet and, by inference, Russian victims of the German occupation. Today, of course, everybody is fully aware that Ukraine is a sovereign state and not a Russian province. The last year has been a crash course on Ukrainian history, politics, music, art, and literature. The authors Andrei Kurkov, Yuri Andruchovich, Oksana Sepushko, Tanya Malyarchuk, and last but not least, Serhii Zhadan, the novelist and musician from your native town of Kharkiv, have become household names. From now on, Ukraine will firmly and permanently remain in our consciousness, not only as a sovereign country with its own culture, but as a European country. So much for the general situation. There is, of course, very little that a university can do to directly influence the great game of politics and war. However, after the attack in February last year, we tried to respond as best as we could to the situation. And mainly, what we could do is assist some people whom we could accommodate at the university, 2 groups, the students and scientists fleeing from Ukraine. So let me briefly talk about what we could do to help students coming from Ukraine. Very quickly, the University of Bern decided to enroll Ukrainian students on the same basis as exchange students which meant a really unbureaucratic and quick procedure. It also meant that they didn't have to pay student fees. On this basis, we could enroll 13 students in the spring semester and then 28 more in the autumn semester last year. Currently, there are 46 registered exchange students with 18 newly arrived. So with this procedure, we had found a solution for those who had already taken up their studies at their home universities, but there was no possibility to register students who had just finished their school leaving exams but had not done any additional requirements. Due to Swiss admission rules, school leavers who could have applied at a Ukrainian university were not eligible for university studies in this country. So what to do with these young people who had just finished school and had to start a new life in a new country? To help them, we organized a preparation year for beginners. The biggest challenges for those potential students were the required language skills, because we mostly offer courses in German on the BA level. A language level of C1 in German is required. So that was the biggest problem in the language. And the other was their lack of knowledge of the Swiss education system and Swiss cultural specificities. From the perspective of the program, the challenge was the enormous time pressure under which the program had to be set up, as well as the funding for additional courses. With the help of Daniela Pedinelli, Deputy Head in the Cantonal Ministry of Education and Culture, who is also here tonight, representatives of all the higher education sectors in the canton were brought together. As a result, we were able to organize 2 information events for more than 120 young people and their families. They received information on the Swiss education system, which offers several different paths to tertiary education in addition to classic university studies. In the end, 12 young Ukrainians started an intensive language course last summer as the first module of the preparation year. Since then, our language center has continuously offered consecutive courses so that participants can reach level C by August in this coming summer. Experts on foreign language acquisition consider this a very ambitious program. However, I am pleased to report that the participants already have such good language skills that they are able to attend regular academic courses taught in German. And in this semester, so in their second semester, they have, having done the first introductory courses, they can now choose between various courses offered, various disciplinary courses that are offered by the faculties, such as Introduction into Microeconomics, Geography of Sustainability, or Love, Hate and Grief, Emotions in Religion, so regular courses that are also attended by Swiss students. The law faculty has created a course specifically for our Ukrainian students, Introduction to Law. And once they have passed successfully all of these courses, they will also have the requirement to apply for regular studies. So that was the students. The other group, of course, were scientists and scholars from Ukraine. Within the Scholars at Risk program, we could employ 4 postdoctoral researchers in the respective fields of visceral medicine, neurology, forensic anthropology, and international trade law. We also set up an internal subsidiary system for financing additional employments. Contributions made by the institutes and faculties were supplemented by the university governing board. All in all, we have been able to employ 17 Ukrainian researchers, most of whom are still with us. For example, at the VET Swiss faculty, the Department of Modern and Contemporary History, and the Swiss Library of Eastern Europe. On the initiatives of 2 members of the medical faculty, Oksana Yamshanova and Ruslan Lushchuk, the Ukrainian Society at the University of Bern was founded. And its aim is to organize events, offer help in individual cases, and also serve as a meeting place for Ukrainians at the university. And in addition to that, there have been many other initiatives that I can't list here. For example, the medical faculty has organized several times transport of medical goods to Ukraine. So a lot of that was really bottom-up and not organized centrally. I also want to mention not just our university, but also our colleagues from the Berner Fachhochschule, the University of Applied Sciences, who were also very helpful to Ukrainian students. And the most impressive example of their activities is the creation of a certificate of advanced studies called Reconstruction Ukraine, which focuses on practical and organizational skills for the reconstruction of infrastructure and buildings. This program has started this semester, and all 30 places were immediately filled by Ukrainian women. So these were the various activities that we started in response to this direct crisis, but there's also research of longer standing at the university concerning Ukraine. In contrast to what I said at the beginning about Ukraine as a blank space on the European mental map, some of these projects and institutions have been around for a long time or have a longer background. For example, the already mentioned Swiss Library of Eastern Europe goes back to the post-Second World War period. Originally a private collection, it was incorporated into the Town and University Library in 1997. It contains a collection of over 160,000 media, including, of course, literature on and from Ukraine. It is thus indispensable to the research conducted at our Institute of Slavic Studies, as well as within our interdisciplinary and inter-university study program in Eastern European Studies. The Institute of Slavic Studies also has, since this semester, created a permanent position for an instructor in the Ukrainian language and culture. It is our aim to consolidate and expand our position as a hub for Ukrainian studies in Switzerland. And to conclude, I would like just to mention three examples of research on the war on Ukraine and politics and centering around the current conflict. So my first example comes from the World Trade Institute that has maintained an intense exchange with Ukraine for many years. The WTI is one of 14 partners of the EU-funded Horizon 2020 program, making agricultural trade sustainable. Christian Häberli, lecturer at the World Trade Institute, monitors together with a Ukrainian grain trade specialist in Kyiv how the Ukrainian-African grain trade has deteriorated due to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The collected data show very impressively how massively Ukraine's agricultural exports, especially those via the Black Sea route to North Africa, are suffering as a result of the war. Based on their findings, the research team formulated recommendations on how to respond to the food crisis, which it forwarded to the 5 largest grain exporters from Ukraine, all based in Switzerland, and to the G7 countries. The second example is from Science of Politics. Krzysztof Krakowski, a guest researcher on the Department of Social Sciences at the University of Bern, works currently on 2 projects on the reception of Ukrainian refugees in Poland. In one project, he investigates the resilience of Poles' determination to support Ukrainian refugees despite high costs. Another project looks at gender differences in refugee support, trying to understand puzzling patterns that show greater support among men, interestingly. Speaking of gender, my third example comes from Politikwissenschaft and International Relations. A research project of Leandra Bias investigates how Russia has been using the idea of defending traditional values to justify its aggressive foreign policy as preventive strikes against Western perverted gender ideology. She could show that the trope of traditional values has become a standard feature in official Russian discourse, at least since 2012, and has been mobilized in the wake of the full-scale invasion against Ukraine. For her research, Dr. Bias received the award Junge Wissenschaft, Young Science, of the Walter Benjamin Kolleg earlier this year, and she is smiling at me because she is with us today. So enough about the university. Let me now, before Mr. von Grafenried will come to the stage quickly, I will just briefly introduce the ambassador. Iryna Venediktova was born in Kharkiv and studied law and management there. She is a doctor of law, and since 2014, she has held the title of a professor of law at Kharkiv National University. She is the author of more than 100 academic publications, including 8 monographs, so she's really one of us. She has become internationally known as the General Attorney of Ukraine, a post she held until 2022. In this position, she was in charge of investigating war crimes committed by the Russian army in places such as Bucha and Irpin. And she has now taken up her post as ambassador in Switzerland. So thank you very much for coming to see us so early during your stay. And I wish you a very warm welcome here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for speaking. Thank you.
Professor, ladies and gentlemen, dear professors, dear students, dear guests, dear friends from Ukraine and friends of Ukraine, I wish on behalf of the Schweizerische Gesellschaft für Aussenpolitik and the European movement a warm welcome here to the University of Bern, and thank you very much for your very quick acceptance of this lecture tonight. As you said, Professor Iryna Venediktova is a university professor, and somebody has like an identification, and well, she will tell herself, but her personal identification is as a person of a university professor, because she's a lawyer and a university professor and has been dean of Kharkiv University and law school. So this should be, and this was thought to be, a homecoming to the university as she left the university for her political and other projects. And now tonight she's coming back to university, so that's a great pleasure. Thank you also, Professor, for the rich presentation of all different researches and all the knowledge that has been accumulated in the last year here in the University of Bern of Ukraine, and I think it's amazing how much we have learned in the last year about Ukraine. We have built a lot of bridges between Switzerland and Ukraine in the last year, and I think tonight we're going to build one more bridge between Bern and Ukraine with the lecture of Ambassador Venediktova. I got to know her in December, so I think it's about 100 days ago that we first met each other. But as you told me, of course, we have to be correct, and of course lawyers have to be correct, and so she got her credentials not 100 days ago. So
it is a good start.
So we're a little bit early, so it's almost 100 days, but not 100 days. And of course, we are very eager to know more about the situation in Ukraine, the perspectives of Ukraine, and the very, very big challenges in Ukraine. We read a lot in the papers, but of course, having a direct perspective of a person who knows like everything about the war in Ukraine is always the best. So thank you, Iryna, for having accepted this lecture, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, dear Mr. Frank. Thank you so much. Беріть стульчик, щоб вам було зручно, да, і пішли. Dear friends, Madam Vice Rector, Mr. Mayor, all colleagues, friends of Ukraine and for Ukraine. For me, it's really a pleasure and honor to be here. And you know, when I try to organize how it will be skeleton of my lecture, I just try to imagine who will be in audience, because it's very important to be on the one page. Now, very tragical moments of the history of my country. It is not first tragical moments in this history, and really our nation felt a lot of during centuries. But I decided to show my country via my eyes. And after that, I will be ready to answer all your questions. And if we are ready now, it will be for me really a pleasure to demonstrate you what is Ukraine for us, for Ukrainians. Kiev University. You see, we have beautiful country, beautiful land, and actually this land of very rich history. Unfortunately, you know, today I gave interview and the journalist asked me about watch. This is watch, Swiss watch. I bought it more than 10 years ago. And when I bought them in Munich, when people asked me, where are you from? I answered, I'm from Ukraine. They say, it's near Russia. It was so painful. Now, after 9 years of war, people and all countries knows where is Ukraine. And Russia is behind Ukraine. asked to show the picture, and I want to give some historical moments. And for me, very important to have these pictures behind me, actually. Ukrainian history. It was really very painful history, very rich, and we are very proud what we have this history. The lands that make up Ukraine's modern territory are home to thousands of mysteries and the stories of hundreds of peoples, states, and cultures. In the history of Ukraine, heroic and dramatic plots have taken place here over the centuries. The formation and destructions of civilization, the intermingling and confrontations of nations, wars, revolutions, cultures' decline and revival. Historians have long been drawn to choosing metaphors to describe this region. It has been called the gates of Europe, as many people, cultures, tastes, and religions have entered Europe through Ukrainian lands. It has also been regarded as the cradle of many peoples and cultures, because Ukrainians, Poles, Jews, Tatars, Belarusians, Roma, Bulgarians, Greeks, Armenians, Germans, Swiss, and Romanians lived and worked alongside one another for centuries. We learned from Herodotus that the Scythians, the ancient nomadic people, lived here a few centuries before Christ. They traded with Greeks and fought with Persians. Compatriots of the Greek father of history loved Ukrainians' Black Sea coast as well. When the brilliance of the ancient civilizations dimmed, the Slavs entered to the historic arena. Archaeological researchers show that the ancient homeland was the Ukrainian land. Under the influence of Christianity, the Slavic ancestors of the Ukrainians began to search for their place of medieval Europe. A powerful medieval state called Kiev Rus. You see, actually, from this picture, Kiev Rus was born and developed into Ukrainian lands, meeting in the Golden Age at the turn of the 11th century. According to scientists, about 100,000 people lived in the main city called Kiev, the modern capital of Ukraine, which exceeded the total then population of London and Paris. Actually, our Knyaz Yaroslav had very great foreign policy. He married his kids with all monarchic families. For example, one of his daughters was the wife of King of France, and you can see her monument in Paris. Ukrainian lands fell under the rule of neighboring states, Lithuania and Poland. It merged into one of the largest and most powerful monarchies in Europe, the Commonwealth. This state existed from the 16th to the end of the 18th century, gathering the territories of modern Poland, Ukraine, Belarus, Lithuania, Latvia, and Western Russia. At the same time, the Ukrainian phenomenon of free chivalry reached its apogee, and Cossacks, free men from the Turkish languages, appeared in the European arena. For a while, they even managed to create their own state called Hetmanat, Zaporizhzhia host. They had their own unique customs, self-government, and an original military tradition. The first constitution of Philip Orlik, was the constitution from the Cossacks. Crimean Tatars developed on their native soil and their own state, the Crimean Khanate. History both united Crimean Tatars with Cossacks in one coalition and brought them into collisions in bloody fights. The Crimean state ceased to exist at about the same time, and the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was divided, and the Hetmanat finally lost its autonomy. Imperial Russia contributed to all these tragic events. Again, I think it's very important to remember that Russian Empire was established only in 1721, when actually they could occupy Ukraine. And after occupation of Ukraine, Peter I called his Moscow Tsarstvo Russian Empire. It was 1721. Later, when German Princess Ekaterina II arrived to Moscovia, actually she decided to rewrite history because she didn't want to govern a barbarian people. And after that period, actually the history of Ukrainian started to be stolen and occupied by Russians, absolutely different empires, from Peters the First via Stalin to Putin, actually, absolutely the same character and absolutely the same manner of behavior. From the end of the 18th to the beginning of the 20th century, Ukrainian lands were part of two empires, Austrian, later Austro-Hungarians, and Russian. At that time, Ukrainians took part in the Napoleonic Wars, fought for political and civil rights, built powerful corporations and railways, opened gymnasiums and hospitals, contributed to science and technology, as well as developed language and culture along the same lines as other European nations that did not have their own states and were parts of empire. The 20th century began of a stormy way for Ukraine. Millions of people were thrown into the chaos of the First World War. Witnessing the downfall of the age-old empires, Ukraine made an attempt to build its own nation-state in 1917-1921. Actually, the embassy of that Ukrainian state was established here in Bern, and we have a table on the building of our embassy about this memorial date. Together with Poles, Ukrainians managed to protect Europe from communism and defeat the Russian Bolshevik troops near Warsaw. Until 1991, Ukrainians lived under the power of the totalitarian regime as constituent part of the communist USSR. It was a difficult time with the terrible tragedies and challenges: forced collectivization, genocide, Holodomor, the Great Terror, Holocaust, deportations, and so on. Despite difficult conditions, Ukrainians found to rebuild cities and villages, created space missiles and nuclear power plants, developed medical technologies, and invented new methods of welding. Some of the computers developed in Ukraine were among the very first ones the world has even seen, not to mention the significant contribution to world culture and art, avant-garde, constructivism, futurism, experimental cinema, and music. Ukraine was the heart of the Second World War, not once but twice, first in the time of Hitler's offensive and occupation, and then during the bloody explosions of the Nazis. Actually, all that millions which were killed by Nazis and by enemy's troops during the Second World War, the majority of them was people who lived on the territory of Ukraine. It was 19 million people. Actually, it's the most majority, and we lost such generations during previous century. In 1991, Ukraine declared independence in order to build a free, democratic, and sovereign state with an internationally recognized border. We are the biggest country by our borders in Europe. The Ukraine is bigger than France. The Ukraine, with Crimea, of course, is bigger than Germany. And actually, it's so surprise for all of us that we lived before full-scale invasions, and other European people did not know about our so big, so brave nature. Now I want to show you, it will be near 10 minutes. I don't know, maybe it's long, but for me it's very important to show you what does mean war. Because again, I don't know the audience, I don't feel who are Ukrainians, who are the Swiss. Ukrainians give in our DNA what does it mean war, because you're absolutely right. You mentioned about previous Holodomor, previous terrible situations during the Second World War. We remember it, and when this full-scale invasion started, actually all Ukraine, whom I seen actually, and me too, we were very calm. We were very scared, but we were very calm, and we understood what we should do. Everyone on his front line. But the Swiss people, you don't have in your DNA, fortunately. I am really happy that you don't have this feeling. What does it mean, war? That's why, again, just to be on the one page, I want to show you what does it mean war. Please. Can we take a pause? Pause. Just imagine that you can see it via your windows, because when it was 24th of February, I remember it very well. I was that period of time Prosecutor General, and actually from another side I was mother of 2 children and really have my family. And it was parents of my husband and my kids was in Kharkiv. And actually tanks were near Kharkiv, and after that I saw a lot of videos how tanks were in the northern part of Kharkiv, actually. And when you saw of the first seconds of video, when someone just do this weapon to the camera, it looks like you see that its weapon is put into you, actually, concrete person. And you know, when I understand how people can see this video as a movie, but when you saw it but your faces, but you can imagine the sound of Russian missiles attack, and when you can imagine that you look through window, I can see tanks with just burnt cars with the people who try to escape. And on these cars were written big white letters, children, дети, actually, by Russian language, and they burnt them from their tanks. It's absolutely other pictures. Please continue.
Most of the military equipment and people were already out of place. Simultaneously, within this attack, the sky was attacked by approximately 75 Russian warplanes. This is the same number as Ukraine had on the eve of the attack. However, Ukrainian aircraft and air defense systems that were removed from the bases of deployment resisted and did not allow Russians to control the airspace to their big surprise.
Russians everywhere. Actually, the main idea, you see the difference between first video and the second one. And when you see these militaries, it's not something secret militaries. Actually, it is our husbands, fathers, brothers, neighbors, everywhere. Everyone now in Ukraine try to defend their land. And when we ask about possibilities to give us possibilities to fight, actually, during all this long history, which I read before, it was history of fighting. Every time it was history of our fighting for our freedom, for our dignity. Because Russians now try just to kill all Ukrainians just because Ukrainians does not want to be Russians. It's a very stupid reason to be killed. Don't you think like this actually? And that's why I think this 9 years of war, 9 years of war, 1 year, more than 1 year of full-scale invasion, and whole world can see this crucial, aggressive and very barbarian war, Russian Federation against Ukraine. But we had before these 8 years when world unfortunately kept silence, but people in Lugansk, Donetsk, active people in Crimea have been killed, tortured, raped, only because they did not want lived under Russian governance. And actually this is really very great and very brave fight our people for our freedom, for our identity, for our chance to be a real nation and real state. And you saw we are the biggest state on our borders in Europe. Unfortunately, now we can see the picture, but I hope that we can do it very fast. And I ask to put this picture of scale, okay? And if you want, I can answer 1 or 2 questions. Or I now better I finished my because I see that now it's alive, and I can finish my short presentation with another video. Maybe we took not photo will be for questions and answers, but we try to put video. It's video about our future. We saw the country of our buildings, our beautiful nature, not worse than in Switzerland. Our great people before war, we had 41 million people on our land. But we really people of future, we people of digitalization, we people of scientific research, and I'm so appreciate for all have you done here in Bern and here in University for Ukraine. One period of time, my professor at university mentioned me that pause is a music too. That's why from one side we have such technical problems, small problems, but from other side it's possibilities to think. Maybe 1 or 2 questions before, when we just try to find.
We have burned, understood.
I can answer the question. Maybe you have, dear Mr. Grafenried, maybe you can moderate one or two questions before we will be in the end. I can finish with this video. When it will be the end of our discussion, I can finish with this video.
Нікіта, тоді тільки фотку scale, а відео я в кінці поставлю. Да? Але все одно ставимо, якщо вийде.
Yeah? Moderate? Yeah, because it doesn't work.
So the proposition is that you ask questions if there are yet any questions, and then she will go on with the video.
I finish with video. Actually, it's a video about future, about freedom and dignity, and it will be a very good end of our discussion if it will be work. If not, we will be in time. Maybe you have some questions, because as I understood, Mr. von Grafenried will be moderate, yes, this discussion?
Yes,
yeah.
of course. So, feel free. Are there any questions? Yes, please. A microphone will come to you.
Thank you so much. Since you for coming tonight, the first question would be more on the personal level, transitioning from the scholar to then general prosecutor to being the ambassador. How has that been for you?
For me, it's, privilege, of course, because I am in a very unique country with a great history, very strong, very balanced state. I really is a part of university world, and I am still feel myself as a university professor, actually. But 3 years, it was 2018, maybe it's like 3 years, maybe more ago, I was advisor of a future President Zelensky in the part of actually legal sphere. And we wrote the program of future president, and my part was justice, prosecutor offices, constitutional order, everything what is connected with law, actually, and legal system, and legal order in the country. And we took the model of Switzerland, because decentralization, diversity of cultures, diversity of religions, languages, it was really very interesting to research your role model of your country. And actually we took the main issues in this program. And then another approach, direct democracy. When we started with the program of future president, our main approach was direct democracy. And even president mentioned from first year that all our citizens, president, it's me. He mentioned it. But I see now in Switzerland that here really people feel that they are real power. And this direct democracy is a very, very powerful thing. That's why, yes, I had very bright experience. I was at first I was the first person who represent program of future President Zelensky in Brussels. And of course, all this, media activity, if I can say in this diplomatic way, because he was the opponent of old system. And from one side was future President Zelensky, and I was a person who represent his program. Actually, it was my first time that I met with oligarchic media. It was an interesting experience. After that, I was head of a legal committee in our parliament, and actually, first days of my candidacy, we took off parliamentarian immunity. You don't know what does it mean actually, but in Ukraine, 30 years we had parliamentary immunity. It means it's impossible to start any process against MP only after voting in parliament. And of course, nothing secret. Everyone before this voting understand that it could be some process and so on and so on. And all parties promised to take off this immunity and only party of President Zelensky actually could do it. And it was a very good experience too, because I had a very, very strong committee from different opposition parties. And the start of my candidacy was the starting of criminal cases. Everyone tried to say that, hey, you are doing something wrong, we're starting criminal cases against you. Just imagine, just several months ago, I was ordinary university professor in Kharkiv University, and after that, I am in the center of all these legal battles. But after committee, when we really took these decisions, all parliamentarians who were in the parliamentarian zone vote for taking off immunity, because they all took this issue in their programs. After that, I was first woman of law enforcement body, State Bureau of Investigations. It was very long period of time, but it was so bright, all these meetings near my villa. It was, you know, I have a lot of memories about this period of life. And after that, yes, I was Prosecutor General. 2 years and a half I was Prosecutor General, and my country is this very long professional life, because my presiders was only 6 months, and for 30 years I was 16th Prosecutor General during 30 years of Ukrainian history. That's why now I have absolutely other sphere of activity. If before I had only jurisprudence and some skills in political life in Ukraine, now I have a very great diversity of human possibilities, human activity. Policy, economic, culture, cuisine, even everything, everything. And possibilities to help Ukrainians who are here. And possibilities to help understand better and make these bridges between two countries, Switzerland and Ukraine. What for me it's a really great honor. Great honor from one side and great challenge from other side, because this country is not easy country. Thank you for your question.
But, you always mention that you live in Switzerland, that you live in Switzerland, and Switzerland is a safe country. Yeah. Can you tell us something about your family situation?
No.
No?
I can tell you about my family situation, because, you know, I have this background. Because actually, when I started to be Prosecutor General and started to open cases against our oligarchs, for example, this case of Medvedchuk, I started in 2020 actually, and it was information not for going to TV show and speak about this. My dogs were poisoned, for example. I had really a lot of bad and ugly information about me, and a lot of threats against me and my family. That's why, unfortunately, I can speak about my family as long as I wanted to do. I miss them. I am not with my family here. My husband is fighting in Ukraine from first days of war. He decided to be a defender, and actually when we all see these movies, it's not about against secret militaries. A lot of Ukrainian men do this job now, and I have from time to time very seldom photos or possibilities to speak from my husband. And actually today it was the same picture as we saw, but only without face. It was I forgot these words. 2 fingers, thank you so much, Andrei. 2 fingers, and behind him it just a lot of weapons, and they're somewhere underground. That's why, yes, this is reality of Ukraine. This is reality of Ukraine. And, you know, it's a really very unique situation when you live in beautiful country and can sleep safety. But all Ukrainians can sleep safety in our country, all of us, because nobody knows where this Russian missile can be. And we saw 9th of March that these Russian missiles were everywhere, from Sumy till Ivano-Frankivsk, the western part of Ukraine. And unfortunately, every hour our people are being killed, and militaries and civilians. And you know that we lost the best people, people with position, people who did not want to live under Russian governance. But Russian army lost not the best people, we all know this. And they have huge, just look at this picture, this is their territory and our territory. We have for now near 30 million people of population. Russians have 135,000 million people. And this is a question how Ukraine, so brave and so strong country, how long we can defeat, we can protect Europe. But really, we now do it. Why our friends from Poland and why our friends from Baltic countries are so loud for our possibilities to fight, for possibilities to give us weapons? Because they know Russian Empire, which started 1721, it's like a hungry crocodile. Then they will not be in calm before they will not eat everything what they see actually. And this is question of our times, and this is question for our future. How we can protect, how we can prevent, how we can do something with intergenerational order. Because Russians very crucial, very aggressive and very stupid, violated international order. It is war not only against Ukraine, it is war against international order. That's why no one can be in safety, no one actually. Sorry if I answer so long, but you saw I'm professor. Now you really see that I'm professor. I just really so happy to be in such a good walls of university.
Another question, microphone will come in. Here in the middle.
Thank you very much. As a Ukrainian myself, and I would like to ask about what are your thoughts about the future need of the reintegration of the young Ukrainians especially, and are there any plans or thoughts of the embassy to keep in touch with these people and to engage them in future activities? Thank you.
Of course, thank you very much for your question. Our people, it is the best what we have. Of course, Ukraine needs you. Ukraine needs very much all these millions who are now out, because when we win, and we win, early and fast, but we will win, and we need all our people back. And young generation, it's really the very strong power which can create new, better state of Ukraine. How we plan reintegrate? I hope that authority, that state can create such conditions that Ukrainian citizens want to come back from one side. But from other side, I believe it's really sincere from my side that you won't come back even without this, because you're patriotic, because you have Ukrainian blood, because maybe from moral side you have some obligations before your country. But again, it's very subjective opinions up to every one person who now live out of our country. But you know that state it's you. It's not only some government, some parliament, ambassadors or law enforcement agencies. State is a citizen. And what is difference now we can see between, for example, Swiss people and Ukrainian people? Swiss people look very, very carefully what is going on their street, on their town, in their country. And they are very responsible citizens. They go to vote. They really try to find possibilities how to make their country better. Actually, when we wrote the program of future President Zelensky, it was the main idea. Every Ukrainian should think how to make Ukraine better and his or her life in Ukraine better. Not someone offends you. Again, presidents, parliamentarians, ministries, anyone. I think it's again common business of all of us to create our state for you, for me, for our children, for future generations, for our old parents. And this is our main idea. And I think it's better to ask yourself how you plan, do you all your skills to do your country stronger. And this will be right answer. Please answer for this question to yourself and maybe to your civil society here. You know, we are only 8 people in embassy for whole country of Switzerland, for policy, for all parliamentarians, not on the federal level, cantonal level, for all governments, federal level and cantonal levels, for diasporas, for refugees, for everything. We are 8. We are ready to do everything, but we are only 8, and we have only 7 days and 24 hours. That's why you, Ukrainians who are here, you are faces of our country. How you really do yourself, how are you grateful, how are you active, how are you really, you know, polite and professionals. You are faces of my country, and I face of your country. And this is controversial movement. It's impossible to do in any other way. Thank you.
More question? This is, I know him, this is Sachar from Kharkiv.
From Kharkiv? Oh, great.
Good evening, Iryna Venediktova.
Good evening.
Sachar from Kharkiv. The question is, how would be your next steps, your next plans, your next future initiatives as the Ukrainian ambassador in Switzerland?
You know, I have everyday tasks absolutely the same. Do everything that our victories would be as fast as possible. To find all other financial assistance from this country of government level or from private level to my country. Be a person to person, business to business, government to government, hospital to hospital, university to university. And of course help people who are now hosting here. I don't like this word refugees, but unfortunately we have more than 100,000 Ukrainian people now here. Before full-scale invasion it was only more than 7,000, now more than 100,000. From them near 27,000 with status S. That's why, you know, we have a lot of job to do. That's why I have everyday plans from these 3 main tasks. That's why I try to be everywhere, to be with meetings of officials, to be with meetings with parliamentarians, to be with meetings with diaspora, with refugees, with children who lost their parents, or which parents are now fighting in Ukraine. This is my plan, to work.
More questions, please?
Excellencies, my name is Tage. I'm political counselor at the Polish embassy. Ambassador Venediktova, you mentioned so many times Poland, so I could not react.
It was in positive mention, you saw.
Yes, of course. We thought with the orders before it was trendy, so ever since 18th century, 20th century, we have a very long history, and I don't have any questions. I just wanted to mention to let you know that, you know, we've been together, we will be together, no matter what, of course, until we win together with them. What I want to say is, it's for everyone
Thank you very much. Can I do now? You mentioned about International Olympic Committee, and actually their main idea is that sports is neutral, and people can go to have this activity under neutral flags. And can I put now a new picture? Nikita, can I ask you about this? It was Twitter of our defenders, and actually it was cited of this one, of Dante Alighieri. What do you think about Dante Alighieri? But actually it's absolutely right, I think, that if we speak about sport, is it possible that people who are officially under military services in Russian Federation, and now they are trained very, very hard, they trained when our sportsmen were killed or tortured, or now our sportsmen fighting, some of them, other sportsmen just go to bomb shelters because every time Russian missiles attack, or we can't have electricity or water or connections, but they trained. All this period of time they trained people who are sportsmen in Russian Federations under military forces, under military services in Russian Federation. And this is about signal, that someone decided that nothing personal, just business. Because we have some commercial sportsmen, some independent sportsmen, some ideas. And actually, if we speak about International Olympic Committee, it was in 1936, before Hitler, when they tried to do the same. Just to try to do this game with crocodile. It was not the crocodile, but crocodile. And after that, it was very bad finish of this. And I think their reputation was damaged. And all these questions about how to do better, it is question about fairness, it is question about reputation. And this is question about position. That's why, again, we will win in any case, the matter when. And who we are, you see who we are. What is Ukraine and who are Ukrainians? Now you see. But whole world watching who are you, actually. We all watching for signals, we all watching for positions, we all watching for fairness, reputation, and all other things. Unfortunately, this is really very crucial times of violence of lives, violence of normal life, violence of international order. And this is, it's a beginning of something new. And I think that all states should find this position, because we all under umbrella of United Nations. You, the Swiss people, you are under umbrella of ICC, International Criminal Court. We unfortunately not. We are just gave competence for these crimes, war crimes and crimes of aggression which were committed from 2014. I'm the defender from Institute, that's why I every time spoke with our politicians that we should ratify it, and we will ratify Rome Statute, the question again of time. But actually, when we have these common values and common international institutions which should protect, prevent and punish, it means something, I think. It was a diplomatical reflection for you. Very good thought. Thank you very much.
More questions, please? First you and then you.
Is it okay? I know that you have time, but...
Thank you very much for your support of Ukrainian people in these very difficult times. My name is Iryna Venediktova. I'm a neurologist for Ukraine for Kiev. And my question is about what do you think about the collaboration now of the universities from Ukraine and here in Swiss. Will it be your task to promote and
Thank you very much for your question, but the answer is I'm here. Before this, I was in UNIL, I was in EPFL, I was in Zurich University. It means that universities are very important, very important. Why the Switzerland is so prosperous countries? Just imagine what it was 100 years ago. It was one of the poorest countries in the Europe. But now it's one of the strongest and prosperous because the educational system was built very good, and cantons and government till 30% of their taxes put in the educational system. That's why, yes, the beginning of state, it is from educational system. I am very interested in it. I am the part of university world, and of course I see that we can be stronger when we start to be in this way as a Swiss people. Yeah.
And you had a question in the rear?
It's a very good question. It's not only a question for law professor or lawyer. I was active lawyer. Actually, it was a question as a previous prosecutor because I saw these cases about our disarmament from 1992 and how it was during all our presidents. And this is question again for, you know, for all of us who signed this memorandum and the people who now try to find new architecture of security. And I think the answer for this question is the peace formula of Vladimir Zelensky. Because now international order is violated. We all see this. That's why we should find new mechanism, new architecture, how to create new security in the world, not only in Europe, in the world. And this is a question of our everyday job, everyday work. You know that we have to do a lot with officials and have a lot of discussions with officials, I mean we diplomats, in all countries of our accreditations, because after that it should be resolutions and very important decisions in United Nations. You know that from April Russia, maybe, but it looks like it could be, will have a presidency in Council of Defense. After that in May it will be the place of Switzerland. That's why of course we do a lot of in these approaches in the framework of peace formula of President Zelensky. This is my answer. Video, yeah? Video, and then I say last word. Thank you very much for your questions. It's really very important to have a live discussion.
Spain is a country of freedom. Freedom of being invented. We are creators, not destroyers. We strive to mix, to try, to fail, to jump beyond the scale. We're building bridges without a single nail. Experiment in fashion, food, and art. Become a leading country in tech and innovations. We have already started massive digitalization of our state. Ukrainians have gotten an important
Thank you so much for these times together. For me, it's really very, very important. I very appreciate Mr. van Grafenried and Madam Vice Rector, actually for all hospitalities which you have with our Ukrainians here in Bern, in university. I know that hearts of Swiss people are open. I see it every day. I know that a lot of houses of Swiss people are open for Ukrainians. And of course, you know, we are very appreciate for this solidarity. It's really very, very human. Now we need to do more. We need to stop this evil. We need to stop war. Ukrainians want victory very much, more than anyone. But our victory is our peace. We want this peace. Our peace is possible only after our victory. It's impossible in any other way because it is about freedom. It is about dignity. You see that we fight for dignity because it's impossible to live as slaves under tyrannic regime because we are free people in free country. Thank you so much, and I hope to have such discussions later. Thank you.